Here's Sophie Cunningham. It was a hard foul.
On August 8th, one player went up for an easy fast break layup and came down bleeding. 8 minutes later, the player who hit her posted 2 words that turned a basketball foul into a national controversy. Her own head coach defended her. Then, 3 days later, that same coach reversed course completely. Live in front of the cameras. Stay with me, because the twist in the middle of this story is something almost nobody explains correctly. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit subscribe, because we break down WNBA controversies using real sources, not rumors. Let's get into exactly what happened on August 8, 2026, in Chicago and everything that came after it, because this story did not end with one ejection. It was the first quarter. Indiana Fever were on the road against the Chicago Sky at the United Center. Sophie Cunningham had a step on the defense and was headed in for what looked like an uncontested fast break layup. Chicago Sky guard DiJonai Carrington chased the play down from behind. As Cunningham went up for the shot, Carrington's arm came across her head and neck area. Cunningham went down hard, and the shot she'd already released still went in. The referees blew the whistle immediately. On the floor, this was ruled a flagrant one. But officials stopped play and sent it to review, and this is where things escalated. After watching the replay, they upgraded the call to a flagrant 2. Under WNBA rules, that requires officials to determine there was excessive contact wind-up, impact, and follow-through, with a real risk of injury. That upgrade meant one thing. DiJonai Carrington was ejected from the game in the first quarter after putting up 8 points in just 4 minutes off the bench. Now here's the part that turned this from a basketball play into a national story. Within minutes of walking to the locker room, Carrington posted on social media 2 words, white privilege, tagging the Indiana Fever account directly. She followed it with a second post referencing August 23rd, the date of the next scheduled matchup between the two teams. And that's when this stopped being about basketball. Cunningham, still on the court, was asked what she thought had happened. Her answer was blunt. She said she believed the foul was absolutely intentional. She also said something that a lot of people missed in the noise. She said she'd never really spoken to Carrington before and had no personal issue with her, but that Carrington has some pent-up stuff. Cunningham is white, Carrington is black. And a chunk of the online reaction immediately connected this to comments Cunningham had made in prior weeks about transgender athletes in women's sports, theorizing this foul may have been some kind of message. That connection was fan speculation. Carrington never confirmed that was her reason. And that's important, because a lot of the loudest takes online treated that theory as confirmed fact when it was never actually established by either player. So now you've got 3 separate threads, tangled into one story, a hard ejection-worthy foul, a loaded social media post, and a completely unrelated political debate that had already been circulating in women's sports before this game even started. Here's where it gets complicated, because what Carrington said afterward doesn't match the version a lot of people decided to run with online. 2 days later, at Monday's shoot-around, Carrington addressed the media directly. Her explanation: this is simply how she plays. She's known around the league for gritty, high-energy, contest-everything defense. It's actually part of what earned her the WNBA's Most Improved Player award back in 2024. She pointed to years of tape showing that same aggressive style, admitted her timing was off because she was coming back from injury, and called the outcome unfortunate. But she was firm that it was never intentional, and she added something that raised eyebrows. She said it might happen again, because that's simply how she plays defense. She's not going to let an open layup happen without contesting it. When she was pressed specifically on the white privilege post, what she actually meant by it, she didn't give a clear answer. She responded to criticism from sports commentator Emmanuel Acho by saying she'd never claimed anything specific, but she also never explained what she meant. That non-answer is a big part of why this story never cooled off. Now let's talk about the coach, because this is the part of the story almost nobody covers accurately, and it's genuinely the most interesting twist here. Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White has history with Carrington. She coached her for 2 seasons at the Connecticut Sun before Carrington moved on. In her very first post-game comments after the ejection, White defended Carrington's playing style, saying, "It was a hard foul. I don't think DiJonai intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did. But it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck." She added that Carrington is the kind of player who's gonna play her butt off and compete on every possession. That comment did not go over well. Fever fans and media questioned why the head coach seemed to be defending the opposing player instead of her own star. The criticism escalated fast. Indiana's own Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, publicly called for White to be fired over it. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith went after her too, openly questioning how a head coach could not have watched the play live, saying on air, "How are you the head coach, and you didn't see the play? It's your job to watch the game." Here's the twist. White later revealed she hadn't actually seen a clear replay when she made that first comment. She'd gone straight from the sideline into her press conference. 3 days later, before Indiana's game against the New York Liberty, after finally watching the play over and over on tape, White completely reversed her tone. She opened her pre-game media session not answering a question, but with a full prepared statement, and called the foul egregious. She said, "Our players' success, our players' health and wellness, our players' safety is always a top priority for me. I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back." She also pushed back on the broader wave of criticism the Fever have faced all season, saying she wouldn't let the hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness hijack the locker room. So, same coach, same incident, two completely different public statements within 72 hours. One defending Carrington, one calling the same play egregious. That reversal is arguably the most underreported part of this entire story. And here's something that might surprise you. Cunningham herself stepped in to defend White publicly, right in the middle of all this backlash. She told reporters, "DiJonai is a hell of a player. She's a great defender. And White coached her for I don't know how many years, so give her her flowers. And she didn't see it, and that's okay." The player everyone assumed should be angriest at her own coach was the one publicly calming the situation down. Stick with me, because context matters here, and this incident didn't happen in a vacuum. This has been an unusually rough season for the Indiana Fever when it comes to physical play. Weeks before the Carrington incident, Connecticut Sun forward Alyssa Thomas picked up her own flagrant 2 foul on Caitlin Clark, back on June 24th. So, by the time the Carrington-Cunningham incident happened, the Fever were already at the center of a season-long conversation about physicality directed at their roster, which is part of why this particular foul detonated the way it did instead of blowing over as a normal hard playoff-style contest. And it's also worth knowing, this wasn't Carrington's first time at the center of a flagrant foul controversy either. Back in 2025, while with the Dallas Wings, she picked up a flagrant one in a game against the Seattle Storm, and had to publicly push back against fans labeling her a dirty player. That's context, not a verdict, just a pattern worth knowing before you decide what side of this you land on. But here's the other side of that same coin, and it matters just as much. Carrington has been the target of real, documented racist abuse before. Back in 2024, during the playoffs, she publicly shared a screenshot of a message sent to her that contained a racial slur and threats. The situation was serious enough that the WNBA Players Association released an official statement condemning it. So, when people online rushed to dismiss her white privilege post entirely and paint her as simply playing a race card for no reason, it's worth knowing she has, in the past, been on the receiving end of exactly the kind of targeted racial abuse that makes this conversation so loaded in the first place. None of that proves what she meant by her post on August 8th, but pretending she has no relevant history here isn't accurate either. And on the other side, Sophie Cunningham isn't a stranger to flagrant foul controversy herself. Just weeks earlier, she picked up her own flagrant call against Dallas Wings rookie Paige Bueckers for encroaching on Bueckers' landing space on a 3-point attempt, a call plenty of fans thought was overturned unfairly against her. Point being, neither player entered this game with a clean slate on physical play, and neither side of this story is as simple as the loudest posts made it look. So, where does this actually leave things? Cunningham says she believes what happened was intentional. Carrington maintains it wasn't, calling it simply her style of defense, and she's warned it could happen again. The league upgraded the call in real time based on visible replay evidence. Wind up, contact, follow through. Her own head coach initially defended her, then reversed that position completely after finally watching the tape. And as of the most recent reporting, there has been no additional league discipline specifically tied to the social media post itself, only the in-game ejection. And that's the unresolved part, because these two teams are scheduled to face off again, a date Carrington herself referenced in her second post. Whether that game passes without incident or becomes the next flashpoint in this rivalry, we genuinely don't know yet. If the league does hand down any further action, a fine, a suspension, anything will be covering it the moment it's confirmed. So if you don't want to miss that follow-up, this is exactly the kind of story where subscribing actually matters. Because these updates move fast and get buried under noise within a day or two. One flagrant foul, one social media post, a coach who reversed her own public position in 72 hours, and a rematch already circled on the calendar for August 23rd. What happens that night might tell us a lot more about this rivalry than August 8th ever did. So keep an eye on this channel, because we'll be here when it happens.